Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Bear Necessities Podcast. We thank you for joining us once again. In today's episode, we have a range of great topics for you guys for this Bears offseason. And the first one we're going to be talking about is Matt Nagy calling off the Bears virtual offseason early. Kind of a skeptical move by the head coach of the Chicago Bears, considering the underwhelming performance of last season. Following that, we will be going over how COVID-19 may actually alter the 2020 NFL season, some in the Bears' favor and some against us. And then finally, for the flagship topic of the show, we're going to be going over the players who we love that may have a limited time with the Bears following the season. There's a lot of players on this Bears roster that we could be moving on potentially from soon, and we're just going to be kind of talking about more long-term outlook this episode. But before we get into the show, we want to thank you guys so much. If you're a new listener, thanks so much for joining the podcast. Go ahead, subscribe to us so you can listen to the podcast every single week. It helps us out. It also allows you to know exactly when we are posting. And also, if you guys have a chance, go ahead and check out our YouTube channel. Just type in Bear Necessities Chicago Bears Podcast, and we're going to be the top result for you guys. We're uploading a bunch of exclusive content there, so make sure you check us out on that. If you're coming from YouTube, welcome to the podcast. This is our bread and butter. We love this podcast. We've been putting a ton of effort into it, and we have great plans for our growth in the future. And one final note before we get into the show, please go ahead and give us a rating and review in the bottom of Apple Podcasts. That helps our rankings tremendously, and we really appreciate it. We're trying to work really hard for you guys, and we would just love if you would give us that little bit of reaffirmation, letting us know you liked the podcast. So with that, everybody, enjoy the show and make sure to tune in later this week for, once again, another Bear Necessities episode, this time power ranking the Chicago Bears against all the other NFL teams. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bear Necessities Podcast. Wow, I mean, that last episode that we did was pretty fun with Foz Sports, and I hope you guys understand we decided not to release an episode for an entire week just to kind of respect the situation and everything that's going on in America. I know Reece and I, we both keep very... We care a lot about the issue, and we track it very well. So we just wanted to, out of respect, hold off on that and just wait for that. But we also had this great episode with Foz that ended up coming, that we ended up putting together. So we didn't want to we wanted to respect the moment, and but otherwise it seems like people are still protesting well. People are still keeping on with the issue, which I know we're happy about. But other than that, Reece, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I mean, going back to our last episode is definitely, almost an honor in a way to do an episode with Foz. I mean, it was definitely, I had a lot of fun kind of bouncing ideas off of him and, just the whole topic that we had lined up. So if y'all haven't checked that out, make sure you go back and give that a listen. But yeah, definitely excited to, get back and, back to the usual me and you for at least this episode. But I know that we got some more things lined up in the future, which I'm also excited to get into. So yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah, it was really interesting with Foz. You never really know with people who use YouTube as their platform how well spoken they actually are, because they have the opportunity to go back, edit out parts of the video that they don't like. And we do that to a certain degree, but for the most part, our podcasts are one take. We embrace, I feel like, some of the flaws that we have, even when we mess up on a name or something, we tend to keep that in there. Just it's funny because it's what actually happens. Like a lot of these podcasts, they focus so much on being perfect that it can come across as ingenuine and not the most authentic version of ourselves. Like I think that we're trying to portray Reece. But yeah, Foz, great guy. We talked with him before the show. He's just an awesome guy. We really appreciated him coming on the show. And obviously giving us a shout out. If you are one of his listeners, we appreciate your continued listenership. We have great plans for the show. We have a ton of new things coming up. I know we're going to have a member and the host of the Bear Down podcast coming on our show next week to talk a little bit about power ranking the Bears. in the current state of the NFL, kind of going through every single team and deciding where the Bears kind of fall through. So we're excited for that. But this week we have a wide range of topics to go through in and of itself. The first one being the Bears and Matt Nagy decided to call off the virtual offseason early. Reece, why don't you go ahead and start us off with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really understand the decision. I think there's only so much football you can really do over, like a Zoom call, because that's honestly what was going on. It was just, one large Zoom call. Of course, we don't have too much insight in what was actually going on, but I'm sure it was a lot of like play review, probably a lot of film review, because of course, on Zoom calls you have the opportunity to, kind of put that video up there so everyone can watch it, see it, and kind of comment on it. So it's definitely constructive, and I think it's good for the early stages of the off season, but it's definitely not something that can really replace a lot of the drills that you would do in like OTAs and mini camps. And I believe they did about 9 weeks of it. So it makes sense that it would, wrap up around now, because there's only so much drilling of the playbook and all that. And of course, knowing the plays and everything is something that you need to continue to do throughout the season. But, before you're even able to see anyone, do any drills with contact or do any drills where you can actually walk through those plays, it's really hard to kind of work on anything further.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And, on that side of it, I do understand the decision of Matt Nagy, but I have to say that if they don't do good this year or they get off to a slow start, this is going to be another one of those things that Nagy is just going to get rammed for. We heard all of last season about how Nagy didn't even decide to play his starters in the preseason whatsoever, and everyone kind of made that a bigger deal than I think it ended up becoming. If I was Matt Nagy, you're going into kind of an area in your job where there's an opportunity you might get fired. And you don't want to give yourself a reason to look stupid in any way, shape, or form, even if in reality it's not actually all that important. And I agree with you, Reece. I think that the virtual off season is kind of limited in its effectiveness, but it is something that's going to be overblown by the media 100%. So, I have to say that, like, logically, I don't think it is going to make a overly good or overly bad impact on the team. I think it's probably rewarding for some of the players. I'm sure they're tired of the virtual offseason as well. It's probably very annoying and very irritating to do, as I can imagine going through online classes for an entire semester. But I don't know on Matt Nagy's end if that's going to be the right look for him.
It definitely makes him stick out, right? I mean, of course, he was the first one. I think he's the only one to do it so far. I'm sure some teams maybe eventually will follow suit. But yeah, I mean, right, with someone that's he's not really quite on the hot seat, but if things start to go the wrong way, he could very quickly be on the hot seat.
Easily.
And you did bring up a good point. I totally forgot about last preseason, but looking back at it, all those reps that Mitchell Trubisky didn't get during last preseason, it seemed like it kind of was a mistake, I mean, we were a lot higher. We expected Mitchell Trubisky to take a big step up last season that we didn't quite see. And, even then there was a lot being said that, why isn't Trubisky getting the reps? He's not like Tom Brady. He's not one of these Drew Brees season-like quarterbacks, that they have everything down the back of their hand. They've been in systems for a long time. He's still younger. He could still improve. I mean, that was definitely clear. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of arrogance there on Matt Nagy's part. And I think Matt Nagy is a little bit of an arrogant coach at times, and we do see that. Of course, we've talked about it pretty extensively. Does not do well with the media sometimes because he's pretty strong to, his thoughts and his beliefs. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. We could be looking back at this going, wow, this was just yet another mistake, or, it won't be a big deal and we won't be talking about it at all.
Yeah, 100%. And ultimately, I think it's something that we'll probably end up forgetting. I think that it's pretty common for coaches in a regular season to call off like mini camps a little bit early. It's not that big of a deal, but in this current state, we really have no idea how much preparation that you need. And it's really hard because you can't say that I mean, obviously this year it's going to be a lot less important than it would have been, last year or the year before, where they just really had no foundation to be building off of. But still, it's going to look kind of questionable. And also when it comes to evaluating Mitch and Foles, like it's going to make Matt Nagy's job a little bit harder. And I do hope that he is continuing to be in contact with these players and also help them with stuff. And it's just the meetings that are being called off, and they're still going to be in constant communication, which is what I assume it's going to be. But that's really all that I think we can say about this. It's not really going to be that big of a deal. It's not really going to be all that impactful for this season. My biggest concern was solely just how it may look on Matt Nagy. So moving on to the second topic that we have today, we've talked a lot about how COVID-19 may impact the Bears, how it impacted the offseason. But today we're going to be talking about how it may actually alter the 2020 NFL season. The first thing off the bat that when I look at this, I notice is I think there's going to be a lot less pressure and distraction on players during this season because there's not going to be fans in the stadium.
Right.
And now, funny enough, we talked about in a previous episode, that actually might positively impact Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky might have a lot better year than we might think because, he's someone who in pressure isn't the best. And when there's a lot of stuff going on and he gets kind of, it seems like he kind of loses his mind and doesn't think clearly. So even if Mitchell Trubisky has a great year this year, I'd still be a little bit hesitant to hand him over some money because it's like, this is such an unprecedented NFL season.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, it's going to change inner scouting, self-scouting a lot because, maybe not so much for other positions where the mental component isn't so much a part of it, but definitely for the quarterback position. And so much is going to be different. I mean, like you said, we have talked about what the offseason is going to look like. It's going to be crazy. We don't know even what training camp is going to look like. How is that going to play out with the Bears quarterback competition? That's going to be crazy to look at. We could be really in a very odd situation there in judging which one of those quarterbacks is the best one for the team. But also, yeah, like you said, I mean, I think a lot of people threw around the jokes quite immediately when, it kind of became clear that it's very unlikely we're going to get to see any fans in the stadium. That, hey, this could work out perfectly for Mitch because, of course, last season he requested that all the TVs be turned off in Hallis Hall.
There you go.
And, all that. So, it kind of became like a meme pretty quickly. But in all seriousness, I think there's something very, very real to be said about that. And, on the flip side, Nick Foles is kind of the opposite. He's someone that kind of feeds off pressure. He's great in those situations. And not that I think he would do any worse, but it kind of shortens that gap between them, right? I mean,
yeah.
That mental strength that Nick Foles has, especially playing down, the latter half of the season, all that, maybe that doesn't make as big of a difference because there aren't fans there. With that being said, we don't really know what impact not having fans is going to have because we have nothing to base it off of. We've never seen a situation quite like this before. So it's really going to be touch and go and just have to see how it plays out. In all honesty, it's going to be pretty crazy.
It's going to be a very unique NFL season. Hopefully we'll make it through the entire thing. Another piece of news that I saw pretty recently is that there's a potential that the NFL has been working with Rydell and 3M to try to be able to fit a mask inside of the helmet. Now, I don't know exactly how this would come to reality. I think it would be possibly smart if the face guards were just completely solid and there weren't gaps. So maybe coughing or the more bigger, saliva particles and everything gets caught there. But ultimately, it's going to be really difficult preventing transmission of COVID-19 to other players. My biggest question is when the season starts, which I do believe it will. I believe that the NFL season will start, and I believe it will start on time. But when it does start, what happens when a player tests positive? Do you have to call the game? Do you have to because of the whole how long it takes for symptoms to develop and the possibility? I know that the WHO actually came out and said that it's becoming more apparent that people who are asymptomatic might not be able to spread the virus. But they walked back on that a little bit. But so if someone on your team does catch COVID, then you automatically have like a 4 to 2 week period where you're going to see other players potentially get it, right? So what happens in those 2 weeks? Do you call games against other teams, or do you like what is the profound effect? Or are you just going to keep that one player out, which seems like it's going to be a disaster if that is the case. And then another thing is Bruce Arians. He talked this week on a radio call, I believe. I can't remember exactly where, talking about the importance of depth, right? It's going to be so important this offseason to have a very depthy team, because you don't know when your star player is going to randomly catch COVID and it's going to turn the entire team on its head. It's not like an injury. Like, this stuff is happening a lot more commonly than an injury. You know, it can literally just be this player goes to the grocery store and gets sick and is out for 2 weeks. So it's going to be very important that you have a lot of depth on your roster. And I think the Bears, even in the offensive line, they have some decent depth pieces that's going to really benefit them this offseason. And another thing, before I let you talk, Reece, that Bruce Arians wanted to hit on is he talked about the possibility that he might actually keep his QB3 in a separate room from the other quarterbacks, because of this idea that, like, if one wide receiver you have gets coronavirus, he's in constant contact with all of the other wide receivers. So there's a good chance that literally your entire wide receiver core could be gone in a matter of 4 days.
Yeah.
So it really hits on this concept that teams are going to have to think very, very carefully about the ways they interact with each other.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a year for these super intelligent coaches, and I hate to say it, but the Patriots, I think, could be a very strong team, because I feel like Bill Belichick is just someone that thinks through all these things. Bruce Arians, I mean, he's someone that comes up with an idea like that, like keeping the QB3, even keeping a QB3 on the roster is kind of unheard of these days, and then keeping them in a separate room, all that kind of thing. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of coaches that are trying different things. I think some of kind of the bigger names that we associate with success, like Sean Payton, Bill Belichick, Bruce Arians to a certain extent, if you want to throw McVay in there, who knows? But I think we're going to get to see some very interesting tactics. And as for, if a player comes down with COVID-19, I think there's just going to be very heavy testing. I'm sure they're going to be testing just about before everything, before practices, certainly before games. We're just going to see. I think it's just going to be a bevy of testing. And I think if you test positive, then obviously you're going to be, self-isolated away from everyone else on the team. But I think if other people test negative, then they'll probably have the chance to play. I think that's what makes sense. It'll be interesting to see with the whole face mask situation, to see what comes of that. I have seen those proposals and all that. I think the first one I saw was shut, but it doesn't surprise me that Riddell is getting in on it. And I think there's other things that come with that too. I mean, having a full face mask like that, do you get a fogging issue? Are players not going to be able to see? Is there some kind of safety thing behind that? Of course, the immediate threat is COVID-19, so I get the wanting to prevent droplets and all that, but there's a lot of other things you have to take in consideration with it all, and ultimately it's just we're going to have to wait and see, just with everything else with this whole situation. It's so applicable to everything else that has been going on in the world around us, where it's just you have to get the facts as they come and then respond accordingly.
So this kind of hits on an idea that we've been talking about extensively on this podcast. And I hate to bring it up again, because I feel like we bring it up all the time. But this is just another reason why the Bears should still consider bringing in Cam Newton, is that we need so much depth at every single position, right? You need an incredible amount of depth to ensure yourself. And if one quarterback gets this, if Mitch Trubisky gets COVID-19 somehow, which it wouldn't surprise me if he's the quarterback that does get it, because I feel like out of the two of them, he's going to be the more irresponsible one. Nick Foles is of a huge likelihood to getting COVID-19 as well, because he's going to be interacting with him on a daily basis, right? Why not add another quarterback to this mix that you at least believe in? I mean, the benefit of having Cam Newton as a QB3 is that he doesn't even need to know the offense that well, because he could just make so much based on his legs alone and just on these explosive plays. Like he isn't going to be the most consistent, the most system-driven quarterback, but he can make up a lot on his own. So I think like as a quarterback 3 in this offense, I mean, perfect, absolutely perfect. All you could desire, truthfully.
Yeah, building off of that, I mean, I think ultimately you're just going to want more athletes kind of this coming year too. Some players with a lot more flexibility. I think that plays kind of well into the Bears' hands in general because they have a lot of players that can kind of bounce around the field and play multiple positions. And not that you necessarily want to flex Cam Newton out in other places, but you could if you had to, you know? I'm not out here trying to pull the whole, like, Lamar Jackson should be a wide receiver kind of thing, but, like, Cam Newton could play, like, some other position if he needed to. I mean, he's, like, big enough to play, like, a tight end. So if you needed him to, like, fill in somewhere, you know, even if, like, there was no need to have a QB3, like, that man can go out and ball probably just about anywhere on the football field. So, I mean, honestly, at this point, I haven't hated that idea the whole time. You know, Cam Newton he's a former MVP. Of course, he's had, you know, issues with injuries kind of recently, and he's fallen out of favor with the Carolina Panthers. But, man, that guy, when he's playing at the top of his game, it just plays some unbelievable football.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that the biggest takeaway that we have to think about this coming NFL season is that the team who wins the Super Bowl is going to be, I mean, there's an opportunity. It might be Kansas City, maybe, who knows, like a really good team. But I have a feeling that's going to be kind of a really random team because you have to treat every single team this year like they have extensive injury issues. Like you don't know which team is going to 1 week just not have half of their starters. You know,
and it could change in the night before the game too. Not to cut you off, but just because you get that injury reports usually come out on Friday, you know, and that's what people usually base a lot, like who they're going to start on fantasy and all that. Someone could get this, you know, or they could not suspect that they're going to test positive for it, and then they could come in on game day, test positive, and next thing you know, the whole game plan goes out the window. So there's just going to need to be some absolute incredible flexibility. Yeah, and for both teams. I mean, you could be planning on having to stop someone, and he's not even playing in the game.
100%. So it's going to be really, really difficult for NFL teams, and it's going to put a lot of stress and pressure on coaching staffs. Hopefully this benefits the Bears more than it hurts them, but I have a feeling the teams that we're going to see have more extended success are going to be these warm climate teams. Because it seems like these warm climate teams are having the easiest time handling the outbreak. I know for, you know, one instance, obviously living in Los Angeles, currently in Chicago right now though, so that's good. But living in Los Angeles, we actually had the exact same number of COVID cases as New York City, right in the beginning. But because we had a warmer climate and because, I mean, there are some actions we took differently, but mainly because we had a warmer climate, our outbreak wasn't nearly as bad as New York City's, not even remotely close to as bad as New York City's. So you got to look at, like, you know, Chicago, we're a cold weather team. We are probably of a higher risk than somewhere like Arizona. The other thing that I think we need to recognize is that who the hell knows how these teams in, you know, Florida, you know, the Falcons in Georgia, like all these teams in the Southeast who are in areas that aren't taking this seriously, right, are going to respond because they're not reporting their COVID numbers right now. So you may not be seeing on the news that these places are having outbreaks, but they're also not reporting their numbers. And whether or not you believe COVID is a big threat or not, I know there's a lot of people now who believe that it's just a hoax or whatever. I heavily disagree with you. That being said, if someone has it, they're not going to be included in the game, if you like it or not.
Right.
So, I mean, look at Tampa Bay. They just spent a huge offseason betting on this year, and their state is also not taking this shit seriously. So who knows how many people are going to get COVID there?
Apparently in Florida, it's like really bad right now. I mean, that's kind of what I've heard. Not that verge too far. That's
what we can assume, but we really have no clue because they're not reporting their numbers.
Exactly. So I mean, we don't. Who knows at this point? And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a season where how different states react. I mean, here in Illinois, the flu season starts in like like late September because the temperatures start to fall off, and I don't know how it is other places.
That's not good.
I've always lived in this I've always lived in this state. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that, honestly, where you're from, kind of what's going on like locally is going to play probably a much bigger part on the NFL season than it really ever would, Like where you're actually from does make a difference, especially I think because this plan is still to, play in each other's stadiums. I don't think the NFL has really made a comment on like, because I know like the NBA, for example, is playing in Orlando, and all in one area. I don't think the NFL has necessarily made a call like that to play in a single city yet.
How about instead of an NFL season, if the NFL just have all the head coaches play Madden against each other head to head and simulate a season? God, I just hope that we're able to get a full season, truthfully. Like the NFL season is in a really difficult part of the year for this. And I can't say that I'm all too confident that we're going to be able to play the entire season. I really can't say that.
I think, right, we can't make any promises. I feel this is the NFL. I mean, the NFL will do anything to make a dollar. Not to make them sound bad in that, right? I mean, there's a lot of kind of bad things the NFL has done, but the NFL is very strongly focused on profits and, having each team make money. They're very good at revenue sharing, doing gate sharing with, ticket sales and all that.
100%.
The NFL is a very well-run business. I think they would do just about
for
anything.
The owners.
Right. Yeah, for the owners. Yeah, exactly. I think the NFL would do just about anything in their power to at least see the season come to some sort of conclusion. But, at this point, everything is kind of off the table. You don't really know what's gonna happen.
It wouldn't surprise me if we saw actually a condensed playoff bracket, kind of in a different form of what the NBA is doing. If they just like towards the end of the season, they just call it and it's like top 4 teams are just going to go for it, like college football style.
Just like an AFC championship and like an NFC championship. And
yeah, just to like conclude it really quickly. It's gonna be really interesting. I wonder if there's gonna be any sort of like restrictions on what players can do. Like are teams going to like be finding players for, going out to dinner and stuff? Where are teams? You better hope that you have a responsible team. And that's one thing that does benefit the Bears is we have a lot of good guys that hold themselves individually accountable. So that's a huge benefit. But, if I was, I don't know, Jacksonville right now, I'd be pretty fucking scared right now. I'd be pretty scared right now. In Florida, too. My guess is that Jacksonville Jaguars are going to get the worst outbreak out of everyone because their players are kind of nimwits, to say the least. And they're in a really bad state right now for that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, of course I called for, Roquan Smith to have a great season. I'm really hoping for him too, but he's already made some decisions that maybe would say that, he maybe won't be the most responsible, but we'll see how that all plays out. I'm sure that there'll be pretty stern talkings too. I'm sure each organization will handle things differently. I'm sure the Bears as an organization will handle things pretty tightly because that's just how the Bears do things. They really try to always come off with the best media kind of presence. They're always they're very aware of their image, I guess is probably the best way to put it. So,
and what scares me even more is that players at Alabama, they just came back for training camp and they're already having issues with COVID. They had one player test positive and then 4 other players did. So, I get it's a very frustrating situation. I hope that it works out. It might actually benefit the Bears in a way because we might actually have an opportunity to like just kind of fast forward a year and get the quarterback that we need. But at the same time, you just never really know. Then another thing, this is a really concerning thing, is how is the salary cap going to work this coming season? Because for those of you who don't know, the salary cap is based off of league revenue. It's a certain percentage of league revenue. So as league revenue goes up, the salary cap goes up. And I think over the past like 40 years or something, there has never ever been a decline in salary cap. It actually tends to increase about an average of $10 million a year. This year, though, without fans in the stadium, with all these different COVID restrictions and everything, how the hell is the NFL going to make up enough revenue to actually even match the salary cap from last year? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And for the first time ever, we might see the salary cap actually drop, which, for teams like the Bears who have a lot of big contracts, that is bad. Very, very bad. It's going to push you into a lot of difficult situations. How I think the NFL should handle this is I think that they need to for this 1 year, they need to essentially bail out these teams, and they need to uphold the current salary cap growth. Teams were expecting a $10 million growth. They should continue to hold that up.
I think it'll be very interesting. It kind of does lead us into
the Colts sitting there laughing their asses off with their $80 million in cap space.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They're rolling around like, some pigs in mud or something. I don't know. Stupid analogy. I don't know what to say. But
I actually think that was a great analogy, Reece.
Thank you. What I will say, though, is I don't know how many people on our podcast, especially, in the Chicago area, pay attention to hockey. But, the Blackhawks had their success in this past decade, winning the 3 Stanley Cups. But the NHL is not quite as well run of business as the NFL is, and they do see their salary cap go down because league revenue does go down. And that kind of destroyed the Blackhawks as we know it. They're a team that they need, like you said, they have big contracts. They kind of want to see the league revenue keep going up so the salary cap goes up so they can afford those players and also continue to bring new people in. But, instead quite the opposite happened. They had to get rid of a lot of their players and kind of patch things together as they could. And I think we could see something similar to that. And like you said, that would hurt the Bears, quite substantially. And it kind of does
very substantially.
It does lead us into our next topic of, what do the Bears want to do in 2021 with some of these contracts that are coming up. And right, I think a lot is going to have to do with how this salary cap situation ends up playing out. If the NFL follows something like you recommended, then you can kind of get away with bringing in a player or two that maybe isn't quite as crucial. But man, if the salary cap goes down, you're gonna have to be a lot more swift in your decision making. There's gonna have to be a lot of you're gonna have to probably make some cuts that you don't want to make, and some pretty hard decisions that maybe won't go over quite well with the fans.
I think the most comical teams that this is going to impact is the Dallas Cowboys, who are looking to shell out a $40 million contract to Dak Prescott, clearly top 1 quarterback in the league, so he gets top 1 quarterback in the league money. No, I'm just playing with that. He's clearly, I think Dak Prescott's pretty awful, if I'm being completely honest. I'm not a Dak fan, but besides that, they're gonna be so I don't even know if they can keep him. I truthfully do not know if if the Cowboys can keep Dak Prescott if the league doesn't uphold the salary cap, because where in God's name would they currently they love to stack heavy level contracts on that team. So where are you gonna fit Dak Prescott in between Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, and their pass rusher? What's their pass rusher's name? DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah.
Where the hell are you going to get that money? That's my question. Then another team, Kansas City Chiefs, who are about to have to pay Patrick Mahomes big time money.
Yeah.
And I believe even as soon as a week ago, they had $70 in cap space. Actually, like the most comically close to the cap number I have ever seen.
Some good accounting right there.
Yeah, very good accounting. They're very careful about what they're doing. So yeah, those teams would probably be hit the most, make things extremely difficult on the team. I truthfully don't even know how they would be able to even, truth be told, I don't even know how they'd be able to keep Patrick Mahomes if that happened.
They would just
so close to the cap already.
Yeah, they would just have to. I mean, I couldn't see a situation where they get rid of Patrick Mahomes.
They'd have to cut like everyone.
They'd have to make some very significant cuts, or Mahomes would have to be willing to take a much smaller contract than he desires. Obviously, not to jump the gun on like the whole like transition in the next topic though, but for me, like with the Bears immediately, if the salary cap were to go down, or I even think next year in general, if you look at like someone like Allen Robinson, if that salary cap is to go down, someone like Allen Robinson becomes much more expendable. You kind of look at him like if he's looking for some actual like serious money because his production's been there, he's been good. We both acknowledge he's at least a top 10 receiver in this league. He's going to be looking for a pretty decent payout. It's probably going to be one of his last bigger contracts. I mean, receivers only have such a long shelf life in this league. I mean, you can play deep in your 30s as a receiver, but I mean, Larry Fitzgerald has proved that. But typically, production starts to slow down, and you look at the Bears kind of have other options there. We talked about we expect why am I blanking? Anthony Miller to take a big step up hopefully this coming season. Someone like Allen Robinson is kind of a bigger name that, a lot of fans will expect to see in a Bears uniform next season that, very well couldn't be.
Yeah, 100%. And if for you guys who don't know, the next topic, of course, is players who we love that may have a limited time with the Bears. We're talking 2021 free agency players we might lose. Before we get into that, one last comment I want to make is what happens to Aaron Rodgers if the salary cap goes down? Because the Packers just drafted a quarterback. Just drafted a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is taking up a large amount of their cap. You don't know. You don't really know what happens there.
I think in that situation, he already has a limited time with the Packers. There's no way that if something like this happens that we're outlining, like this particular scenario, he has to be a free agent.
Yeah. 100%. He becomes a free agent. So that would heavily benefit the Bears if they could somehow manage to get him on their roster. That'd be absolutely amazing. But that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. Players who we love who may have a limited time with the Bears. I guess we'll go through this. I'll give a name, Reece. You give a name. The first name that I got is Tariq Cohen.
That's an interesting one. I glanced over Tariq Cohen and I thought, man, like he's someone that I think Bears fans have really kind of fallen in love with, particularly kind of like in a Devin Hester kind of way, right? He's a real game breaker, someone that really has the ability to turn the game on its head, can switch momentum, in which I think the Bears lacked, in the years kind of between having Hester and Tariq Cohen. But at the same time, we talked about his inability to, fit into the offense, right? At times, it seems like he was kind of forced into certain play calls that maybe didn't really make sense. Matt Nagy not really knowing how to utilize him in the right way. It's someone that I think that Bears fans would be pretty upset to see leave. But at the same time, you have to really kind of gauge what is his worth with this team. He is kind of a niche player, and he does good things on special teams and on the offense. But could that money be best used elsewhere?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is trying to figure out a value for Tariq Cohen. He's such a unique player that he becomes kind of a difficulty in discerning how much he's worth, what contract we should give him. And I have a feeling that he is going to have a lot larger of a number in his head than the Bears are going to want to pay him. And, Tariq Cohen, he's a good player, but he's definitely someone who the Bears can get rid of, if I'm being completely honest. He is a traditional. He's obviously kind of in the same mold as Darren Sproles, right. who did spend some time with other teams because I think that, they had the same issue is because it's really hard to value him. Yeah, I think that's all to really be said about Tariq Cohen. I would not be surprised, COVID or not, or lower salary cap or not, if he is not on the Bears next season.
I think one name that jumped out to me was Roy Robertson Harris. I think that I really like what he did. He really had some like splash games last year too. I mean, really what jumps off the page of me is the first game last year when I think he was the best player on the defense against the Packers last year. I mean, it seemed like he was getting in the backfield every time, and I think a lot of that has to do with, playing with Khalil Mack, really shores up a lot of space. Roy Robertson Harris is almost always in a one-on-one matchup. And I think
100%.
that kind of proves that maybe, he might be looking for a bit, especially depending on performance coming up. If he has another good season, he's going to be looking for a bit of a pay bump. The Bears probably go, hey, we're hanging on to Khalil Mack. He's going to continue to free up space. We can probably go out here and either draft a guy or pick up someone on free agency for a pretty small contract that's still going to be able to get loose and be able to get loose on like a one-on-one matchup and get to the quarterback and disrupt the run.
And not to mention, they just drafted Gibson, who is very similar to his mold, and we also have Bilal Nichols. I agree with you. I don't think there's really... It honestly wouldn't surprise me if we end up trading him, because I think he has a lot more value than people might think. So maybe, at the trade deadline, we consider, shipping him out, getting a little bit of value from him. But yeah, he's a player that I think ultimately will end up not being re-signed by the Bears because, A, we don't really need him. We're so deep at that position. It just wouldn't make sense to invest more money there. We already have options that are, low cost, high upside that we already really appreciate. But tons of respect for Roy Robertson Harris. Obviously came in here with Jonathan Bullard, I believe he was a 4th round pick for us, or 3rd round pick for us.
Yep.
And him and Roy Robertson Harris coming in as an undrafted free agent and obviously played well better than Jonathan Bullard throughout that time. So it just goes to show you how good Ryan Pace is at grabbing these undrafted free agent guys. And obviously how he can work on a little bit some of his drafting skills, especially in the higher rounds. But another player who I truthfully believe this is his last year with the team. I truthfully believe it. And if the Bears get off to, a slow start and they're not playing that well, I could see this player being moved mid-season, okay? And that player is Kyle Fuller. I have a ton of respect for Kyle Fuller. I think that he did a great job redoing his career, fixing his career, and he's obviously the golden boy that Mitchell Trubisky should be looking up to, is someone who, showed some potential early on, and then, went through some issues, wasn't really able to get on the field, and then ultimately became, all-pro, Pro Bowler type player. Kyle Fuller is a really good cornerback. I think he is a top 5 cornerback in the NFL, truthfully. But I don't believe he is a great fit with Chuck Pagano. Chuck Pagano tends to, more heavily desire these man corners, these guys who are really good in press. And Kyle Fuller really isn't that guy. And I also have a lot of faith in Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Johnson is a number 1 cornerback in this league. I think he could be one of the best cornerbacks in this league. I think he's so versatile. He's got such good IQ for the game. And I think that he can become the Bears' number 1 cornerback. And on top of that, I also have a ton of faith in Kindle Vildor, another player who I absolutely love, and I think he's a great fit for the Bears. So Kyle Fuller, he's due $20 million after this season, and you can get off of that contract and possibly get a 1st round pick for him. That seems like, if you could offer the 1st round pick for Kyle Fuller and you're not having a great season, that's a home run value. That's a home run value.
I think it was clear that with this Bears draft getting Vildor and Jalen Johnson, that I feel like Kyle Fuller already has like a foot out the door in a way. Mm-hmm. I feel like that really was kind of the tipping point where at least in my head, that clicked that Kyle Fuller, this is probably his last year with the team. Like you said, depending on how the Bears start, if it goes south quickly and they have the ability to go out and get some real good draft capital by moving Kyle Fuller and there's really not much to lose, I could definitely see it happening. I mean, the Bears have I think the secondary, along with their kind of edge rushers and, D-line as a whole, it is probably the deepest part of this Bears team. And, as much, I wouldn't mind seeing Kyle Fuller back in a Bears uniform in 2021. I think that he's a very good player. Mm-hmm. I think you do speak some truth that he doesn't fit as well in Pagano's defense as he did even in Fangio's. We kind of saw that rebirth once Fangio came back, where we got to see the Kyle Fuller that we saw within like his first 2 years, because it was looking like Kyle Fuller started really strong, then he kind of fell off. He was starting to look like a bust a little bit. Vic Fangio comes back. He gets a little bit of a boost up, and we have the Kyle Fuller that we have today. Of course, he played alongside or opposite of Prince Amukamara, and it's a pretty good cornerback pairing. But Kyle Fuller was definitely the superior of them. But bringing in Jalen Johnson, man, I think that we're really going to kind of see that gap of who's playing opposite of each other to really kind of shrink. And then we're going to kind of see that the Bears can probably afford to move on from him. And, for that reason, I do agree, with you almost completely on what you said, other than the fact that I think that, if he were to come back in 2021, and not that you weren't saying this, but if he were to come back in 2021, I wouldn't be upset, but maybe I'd think in a way that, I'd want to see where the methodology comes from of what they could be doing better things with that money that they would be saving. In a way, I kind of do want to see Kyle Fuller leave, just because, in a possibly tightening cap scenario, he's someone that's kind of easier to move on from. And maybe that's talking a little preemptively, because we have yet to see Jalen Johnson play. But, I think that he's going to be a really good fit.
And when we're just looking at a team building aspect of this, $20 million for a cornerback is not good value for a team, because, the cornerback position, obviously an important position, but on the defense, one of the lesser important positions. You're supposed to build, the cliche is always build a defense through the middle and build a defense from the front back. So cornerback is obviously one of the lesser priorities. We saw, obviously, the Eagles win a Super Bowl with, some pretty poor cornerback play. And I think that the Bears can absolutely do that as well. They have such a good front seven that you can really get away with, not as much talent in the cornerback core. And, $20 million, there's a lot of better places we can spend that, especially when you consider the possible draft value that we can get for Kyle Fuller. Kyle Fuller is a player who I believe we can get a first round pick for, or at very least a high second round pick.
He's a borderline first, kind of depends like what his quote unquote like form is at the time,
Yeah, and well, I think if you send him to a team who is trying to make a Super Bowl run, you can get a first out of them for sure. Like a first out of them for sure. And here's the other aspect to this is that the Bears could potentially use that draft capital and whoever or wherever they land in the first round this coming season to move up and get a quarterback for the future, which would be huge. And it just makes so much more sense. Not only do you land yourself the quarterback for the future, but you free up a lot of cap space while doing so.
Yep. And on the topic of quarterbacks, I feel like this one's kind of an easy one to say, but Mitch Trubisky, I feel like it had to be said. Of course, the Bears did decline his fifth-year option, so, that makes 2021 his year, So I think that there's obviously a chance that
Hey, Ryan Pace came out saying he believes in Mitch.
I know, and they've been saying that forever, but yet their options, their actions don't really follow suit with what they're saying.
No, they do not.
Obviously there's a chance that Mitchell Trubisky doesn't start as a quarterback this year. I feel like there is kind of more. I think Foz, really brushed on this a lot. That the soon as Nick Foles starts over Trubisky, the Trubisky project is over. That's really going to take the full.
You can't walk it back.
What?
You can't walk it back.
Yeah,
you can't go back.
Yeah, exactly. It's either Mitch is your guy at the start of the season, or he's not, or if Nick Foles ever ends up stepping in for him, that really ends things. So I think there's a very good chance that Nick Foles is going to be starting some games for the Bears in this coming season. So I think that really ultimately kind of puts Mitchell Trubisky on his way out. Me, Austin and I have been very, very vocal about our want to get a quarterback high up in next year's draft. I think that getting rid of Mitchell Trubisky just ultimately frees up that roster spot, and I think that signing him to another contract is kind of just would be silly, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. And especially with how deep the quarterback class is this coming season, whatever potential Mitch Trubisky has, there's a lot of guys in this class that have even more potential than that. Here's going to be a little bit of a controversial one. Obviously, we're not talking about solely next year. We're talking about the near future, right? Nick Foles. As I know, many of us have good faith in Nick Foles. We believe in him. We believe that he may be able to do it for one season. But what we shouldn't believe is that he's going to be our long-term answer at the quarterback position, because he's not going to be. I hate to be the bad news breaker to everyone, but Nick Foles, his time is limited on this roster from the day he steps foot in Hallis Hall. Okay. he could have a 30 touchdown season, and I would still say that because he is just not a consistent player. He is meant to be a guy who, can come in for a season and play potentially pretty well for us. I think that both Reece and I believe that he is going to have a good season when he finally does come in. But that does not diminish the fact that the Bears need to go out and get their franchise quarterback for the first time ever in one of the deepest quarterback drafts of all time next season.
Yeah.
Nick Foles is limited.
Nick Foles is a bridge quarterback. Yeah, he's kind of bridging, in my opinion, he's bridging the Trubisky generation to whoever the next new quote-unquote franchise quarterback that the Bears are going to draft is going to be. He's simply kind of a stopgap. He's ultimately what Mike Glennon was when he was brought in. I mean, we can only hope he's going to be a lot better. But Mike Glennon was there to bridge, the Jay Cutler era to the Mitchell Trubisky era. And no one really anticipated Trubisky having to come in as early as he did. But it's kind of the same premise. I think Nick Foles at maximum is going to play his contract for the Bears, and that's going to be it. I don't see a situation where he ends up, getting a new contract. He would have to come out and win back-to-back Super Bowls with this team, I think, in order to really accomplish that.
100%.
And I think even then the Bears probably wouldn't even sign him to that long of a contract because he does have a lot of mileage, on him. He's been playing in this league for a little while now. He's not really someone that you can really lock in long-term for a long time and expect him to be playing at the highest level that, is required to be a contender and compete for Super Bowls in this league.
Nick Foles is our Alex Smith. He's a guy that you're bringing in to, do good enough while you figure out your quarterback situation. So it's not something that, you're going to get called out and fired for, but like he's not the player that you want under center. He's going to be, he's a stopgap. I mean, that's what it is. We have to accept that as Bears fans. He's not going to become an MVP. If he becomes an MVP, God, please let me be wrong. Please let me be wrong. I would love to be posting this up. I'd love for everyone to be posting this up saying, look how wrong, Austin was. But he's not going to be an MVP. Okay. So we have to really think realistically about the future. And I think that's why we kind of did this segment, is that there are a lot of players that we like that we can move on from. The Bears can have the opportunity to really remake this team in the next couple of years, kind of not rebuild it, but retool it a little bit and really have a really good team. Because even if you get rid of all the guys we just mentioned, this team is still stacked. This team still has so much talent at every position. It's really going to be a good time for Bears fans, and I have a really positive outlook about our future.
Yeah, ultimately, I think there's a lot of positives on this roster. In the coming year, the Bears just really need to find that solution to the quarterback problem. I think it's enough time has passed now where we've just been kind of twiddling our thumbs and not doing anything about it. It's time to take action and go out there and actually be serious about getting some real quarterback development going on, drafting a quarterback high. Me and Austin and I, my grammar sucks, have called even in this draft for the Bears to draft a quarterback at some point, and they didn't. And I think it kind of just shows their lack of awareness and, their lack of adaptation in a way. But, I also do have to acknowledge that Ryan Pace has built what looks on paper to be an absolutely incredible defense, and there's nothing really to discourage me or make me think otherwise. And offensively, they really kind of strengthen a lot of their positions. The Bears never really shored up that offensive line in the way that we thought, but they definitely did add some more depth. And it's going to be exciting to see how they play out on the field, in this COVID-19 world and our strange times. And we're really just going to have to wait and see how everything shakes out. But ultimately, I think that, no matter how these games are played, the Bears should be a definite contender in the coming season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really excited for it. Even though we have these questions with COVID-19, I'm really excited for this season. And we're even more excited for this podcast. We have such high hopes for this podcast. We're really looking to make a big impact this season. Reece and I, we view everything that we're doing right now as just the foundation of everything we want to do in the future. So if you listen to this point in the podcast, we're guessing you liked it a little bit, go ahead and subscribe to us so you can listen to, every one of our podcasts, so you can hear, the latest news about all things Bears, so you can stay entertained during this, sometimes strenuous, extra long off season. And look out next week. We're going to have Chris Maltby from the Bear Down podcast joining us on the show. And we're going to be just, talking even more things Bears. If you like the show, also go ahead, leave us a rating and review in the bottom of Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you want from the podcast. Let us know what we can do better. We really appreciate that. And with that, Reece, I think that's the end of the show.
Yep. Thank you all for listening, and you'll be hearing from us soon.
Bear down, guys.